We are about to talk wine this afternoon on IG Live and talking to our guest, Ezra Cipes in the Okanagan. He's in Kelowna, and we will have him join us shortly. Just waiting for him to request to join. And then here we go.
Hi.
Hi, Ezra. There we go.
Hey,
You're
Richard.
on. Hi.
Nice to see
So,
you.
are you nice to see you? Are you outside or are you inside?
I am in my own backyard in
Okay,
Kelowna.
perfect. So we're going to talk wine this afternoon. We got a lot of people just joining us right now. We've asked some people if they have any questions they want to ask us along the way and talk about as we talk about wine. Any comments, you can just write that down below, and then you and I will watch for those. So your family's been involved in the wine industry for a long time. So can you tell us how many years you have been doing wine in the Okanagan area?
Sure, yeah, my parents bought Summerhill Vineyard in 1986. And it's been a vineyard since the 1940s, but it was mostly table grapes when we moved there. And they ended up being, some of the pioneers of the BC wine industry.
And then fast track to today, something quite different than nobody would have ever expected is COVID and how that's affected everybody across North America, across the world. How has it affected the wine industry in the Okanagan in general? Not just yourself. We'll talk about yourself in a minute, but in the wine industry in general, how do you think what kind of impact has it had on the industry?
Sure. Well, let me just ask, is my microphone facing the right way?
It
Sounds
is.
okay to you?
I see. You sound great.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, this is a challenging year. Last year was a challenging year, and this year is even worse. This is a stress test for the Okanagan wine industry. Um, you know, this is an expensive industry to be in. The land is expensive. The planting costs are expensive. The labor is expensive. It's a industry of passion. We invest our lives into it, and it's never a this is not a get rich quick scheme at the best of times. When things are rolling and tourists are visiting, it's it's not a way to generate. And there's if we just wanted to make money, we'd be doing something else.
Okay.
And I think that goes pretty much for everybody in this industry. It's an industry of passion. So this is a real stress test for the industry. I think a lot of people will have uh, real challenges. I hope they have good relationships we all have good relationships with our bankers. That'll help. Uh, Certainly the government has really helped us get over the hump in March and April. But in May was shocking to look at last year over this year. That's when we start to see tourism and, large direct sales in May and especially June and heading into the summer. And yeah, April was great. We were able to sell a lot of wine online
Hmm.
and pretty much with the help from the government and with the online sales, be pretty close to on par for previous years. There was less expenses, less sales, but things evened out pretty good. But looking at now the returns from May, it's a wake up call. I mean, we all knew it was good. April was like it was like a false sense of like, oh, maybe this is not going to be so bad.
Hmm.
But no, it's going to be a
So,
tough year.
so obviously online sales. So if April was good for you, and then you said it went down in May. Do you think is everybody in the area involved have their own website for online sales, or do you think there's like a certain percentage that does?
I would hope everybody does. I mean, I think it's such an easy thing to do now. $300 a year with Squarespace,
Right.
and you can have an online store. So, there's no real reason not to. I mean, not we have a decent sized mailing list, right? And it was interesting for us because I don't know. I'm of that generation, sort of just before millennials, when we taught the worst thing to be for my age was a sellout, right? And so when we use our mailing list, we send like 4 apologetic emails a year. Say hi, hope you don't mind hearing from us.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we had to turn into online marketers, and we've been sending out 2 emails a week since mid March. and doing Facebook advertising and all this stuff. So it's been a real sea change for us. But luckily, we had a list.
So many of the wineries have wine clubs, and I've seen this in action. I've heard a lot about it when I traveled through Oregon a couple of years ago. For the Okanagan, I would imagine that most wineries have wine clubs. Wouldn't that make up a large amount of sales that you're going to be shipping out to various homes? The wine or is that a concern also at this time?
What do you mean, the wine clubs? Like,
Well, a lot of people have wine clubs where people are like on their mailing list, same idea, and then they're
yeah,
paying X number of dollars and they're getting wine shipped to them.
yeah. Well,
So
that's been steady.
okay.
That's no big change. We have that, and we just sent out our June shipment yesterday, and today we're shipping it out actually, and that's great. Wine clubs are great. It's and that is a good part of our mailing list. Are people who are in the wine club. I like to think that those people should be our most loyal customers, but I
Right.
know that there's some people who are part of 3 or 4 or even more wine clubs.
Oh, it's
They get a quarterly shipment from Summerhill, and they might also get one from, I don't know, Quailsgate or whoever else.
because between March and May, the lineups in most liquor stores were quite long. They were longer than you've ever seen. So obviously, people would attribute that to people were worried. There wasn't a whole lot to do. You were at home.
Mhm.
So how has that affected you? Like you said, like May's been a bit down. So obviously people are buying the wine in the liquor stores and everything else in the liquor store. Do you think that's going to continue? I mean, obviously COVID is with us for a while. So do you think this is going to continue throughout the year, or do you think there'll be a bit of a drop down, I guess, of liquor sales?
Well, what we did see some increased sales to private wine stores for this, excuse me, for this last quarter. That's a smoker's cough, by the way, not a COVID cough. And we but I think largely the biggest increases were in inexpensive alcohol. When you saw those lines, it wasn't people lining up to buy Appalachian wines from around the world or
Right.
from the Okanagan Valley. It was people loading up on a bottle of vodka and a flat of beer and stuff like that, and maybe naked grape for wine. That was the largest part of it. The people who are buying from us are buying direct from all over Canada, which is very nice, and they don't mind spending money. I think they're a fairly well-heeled group of customers who, even if they're not working, can still afford to drink nice wine. So we saw that sort of peak in April and then decline a little, especially when things started to open, when we entered like a second phase in May. Started to see that sort of taper off. It's still much higher than last year, and we're still actively marketing online. I can tell you a little bit about what Summerhill is doing.
Right.
And
That was my
yeah,
next question. So
sure. Yeah. We're always very careful not to discount wine, right? Because we can't. It's expensive to make organic wine in the Okanagan Valley, and you don't want to be a discount brand. You don't want to get people used to discounting. But we started offering like a unique special offer every week. So one week it might be, sparkling wines, and it's a selection of them, and you don't get a choice. It's like a 6 different sparkling wines for one set price, which represents a little discount from if you bought them individually. The next week it might be, rosés, or we've even released library wines, and some of them are not inexpensive, but they're wines that if normally you'd only be able to buy in our restaurant for $150 a bottle, and you can buy them online for $75 a bottle. So that's been a nice way to engage with people and generate revenue from our library, and kind of coming up with creative ideas. But it's to offer what are really amounts to super premium wines for a premium price, I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean?
So your tasting room is now open. So what kind
Yeah.
of COVID protocols did you have to put into place for people to come into the tasting room?
Well, you've been to our tasting
I
room,
have, yes.
and I hope people who are joining us on line have been there. We have an interesting place. We're a unique winery experience. We have never had a sort of velvet rope feeling at Summerhill. It's always had a very like welcoming, you don't have to know about wine. You don't have to feel like you're an elite person to drink our wine. But if you are, I hope you feel comfortable too and you like the wines. But it's been a very like welcoming, friendly, easygoing place. Now all we have a literal velvet rope.
Literal.
Well, it's actually like metal. It's not literally velvet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have like a rope line at the entrance. And when we first opened, I was out there myself because it was the first time we'd done it and I wanted to see how it worked. And we have a little stand with Cipes Brut, which is our sort of house sparkling wine, right at the entrance, and a host. And we welcome you. We get your contact tracing information. We pour you sparkling wine, and we ask you to wait online with your sparkling wine until one of the tasting stations opens up. Right now in June, we have 6 tasting stations. When we get to July, I think we're probably going to have more like 20-ish.
Wow. Okay.
With the hope that we'll be seeing people locally and from around Western Canada visiting us. Yeah.
Well, they said that the government expects to announce in the next 2 weeks about travel for British Columbians and where they can go and all that kind of stuff. So I'd imagine that either people are already booking up the Okanagan in that area now, or they're waiting kind of to the government's announcement. But I'm sure that that's going to pick up and that you will have people come this summer. Now, you usually have a lot of bus loads of people, because I remember last year I saw a lot of buses when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear about those in advance, that they're coming?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a lot of Americans usually, or is that people from all over BC?
It's from all over the world. And I don't know. I'm not 100% sure how those large coaches are going to operate this year.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to be allowed to have 40 people in a bus.
Right.
Tooling from
Vancouver bus, but yeah.
Maybe from 20, yeah. We get people from all over the world. We get people from India and China and Japan, from Germany and France, from Quebec, from Vancouver, and from the United States. Did I leave anything out? No, we see coaches from all of those areas, originating from all of those areas. And we have we call it our main tasting room. It's pretty much, in previous years, it was pretty much dedicated to hosting those large groups. And then we had smaller tasting rooms. We had a gallery tasting room and a gazebo outdoor tasting room where we would host, small groups that drive in, and I don't think we're going to have any of those big coaches this year.
Right. I don't think you are either.
None of them.
So knowing that in advance, what do you think you can do differently to kind of course, try to get your sales up, but welcoming people on your property?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. You got any ideas for me? I think that particular business is almost irreplaceable. The opportunity that we have now is to have to offer more intimate, interesting, informative experiences for all of the other customers that come. Rather than, sometimes at our gazebo, for instance, we'd have 2 people working our gazebo and we'd have, just people sort of mobbed all around it, right? Maybe 9-10 groups at a time. And the experience is fun. You're outdoors in a beautiful place. You're tasting organic wines. But, the person behind the counter wouldn't have that much time to romance the wines and educate you and all that stuff. So now with a host and a sort of more maitre d' sort of like experience, you're brought to a tasting station. We sort of hope that the person doing your tasting is never conducting more than 2 groups at a time, so that they're available to do that education, and hopefully we'll make some of the sales back just by connecting more with the people who are there, and having them have a better like a deeper relationship with the wines and the experience.
So you've got a bistro on site. Is your bistro, has that reopened for the season?
It's open
already?
now.
It is open now. So what have you had to do there? Have you had to do like spacing of the tables and all that kind of stuff? Anything else that you have to do there?
It's pretty interesting. it's we're lucky because we have a lot of space. We actually have two different food primary licenses, I guess you could say. Not technically true, but basically true. We have a winery lounge endorsement, and then we also, which is what other wineries have to open their restaurants, and then we also have a non-farm use food primary license, which is a capacity of, I think, close to 400 people.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because we have a ballroom that's 238 people capacity, and then we have a restaurant and patio that are about 100 each, 100 indoors and 100 outdoors. So no, we can't host 430 people anymore,
Right.
but we do have a lot of space to welcome people, and our patio is large.
Right.
I think there is about 65, 75 seats out there now with the spacing, and then indoors maybe a little less than that. I'm going basically ballparking off the top of my head. I actually don't know the numbers off the top of my head. They're posted on our website, actually, in the little COVID, visit us during COVID resources. Yeah.
So that's good for you. That's great that you have such a large patio. You can welcome a lot of people, because a lot of people want to sit outside, especially in the Okanagan where the weather's a lot warmer and drier than Vancouver. People, it's a great way of being outside, and you can sip some wine and have some food, and it's a great experience.
Well, our chef, Jeremy Lipin, and his team are doing an awesome job. They sort of launched this new, I call it Mediterranean soul food restaurant. And I saw a picture of deep fried soft shell crab on a little salad, herb salad, with a glass of sparkling wine in that view. And it's just beautiful. You know, the experience is really good. There is a little more space between tables. You have to wait a little bit for sanitation between seatings. And what's the other thing is that really the biggest difference is that there's less servers and more support people, right?
Right.
The people who are dealing with dirty dishes and cleaning tables and expediting food are dedicated support people, and the people who are taking your orders are dedicated servers. It's not everybody doing everything anymore, or a larger group of servers with a smaller group of tables. And in a way, it's kind of nicer. I mean, we're experimenting with ideas like they do, I know, in Asian countries and in some European countries, where instead of the servers having to be a little bit psychic or a little bit intuitive to know when you want them there and when you don't, you put the disc green side up if you want the server to come and visit you, and red side up if you want to be left alone. Stuff like that to make it a little easier. I kind of like that. It's kind of nice, It's like nobody has to be a mind reader.
Right. So have you come up with any new wines this past year?
New wines?
Yeah.
Oh, always.
Always.
Yeah.
So what have you come up with? Can you tell us? Yeah,
absolutely. The wines that I am personally most passionate about are the ones I'll speak about.
Okay.
Summerhill started, as you may know, as a sparkling wine house. When we first opened, our first vintage that we released was 1991, and we opened as a sparkling wine house because that is what our particular vineyard in Kelowna is best suited for. It's really special, unique conditions to make sparkling wine that are just, rival anything in the world, and are unique in their own way, characterful in their own way. So we've made a few vintages that we call them traditional cuvées, which are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, sort of an homage to Champagne, which is maybe the spiritual home of traditional method sparkling wine. And we make these wines with the idea that they're going to be long-lived and have a long time to bottle age, mature on the lees. And we just released in February the 2000 vintage traditional cuvée, which we release as Cipes Ariel. It's an estate-grown wine just from Summerhill Vineyard. And my goodness, it is really... I shouldn't be the one to, say how good it is, because we made it at our farm, so it's for other people to say how good it is. But I'll just say it's a wine that I love drinking. It is so beautiful, and it reminds me of drinking, Grand Mark champagnes, wines that you'd spend $350 for. It has that incredible character, the way the autolysis has expressed itself over that time, but it also has the way the fruit expresses itself in the Okanagan is unique, and it's different than champagne, and it's quite special, actually. So that's a wine I'm really excited about. We sell it for $100 a bottle. You can have it in our bistro. I'm not sure if it's by the glass, although it may be. And if you come to our tasting room and ask nicely, we'll open it and pour you a sample of it. And it's a really special wine, really worth tasting. It's just something that you can't make in very many places in the world. You can make it in the south of England and the north of France. You can make it in the Okanagan Valley. You can make it in maybe New Zealand. Not exactly the same wine, but a wine of that caliber in that style. And I can't think of too many other places around the world where you can make wine like that. Maybe other places in Canada, but they're going to express themselves differently. And then the other wines that I'm really excited about are our vineyard in Kelowna is British Columbia's only Demeter certified biodynamic vineyard. And for those who don't know, biodynamic is the world's first organic certification. Organics actually grew out of biodynamics and is sort of a secularized version of biodynamics, which started as a holistic growing program based on lectures by Rudolf Steiner that he gave to farmers in response to, the introduction of synthetic fertilizers and the loss of, life force on their farms. Anyway, tangent. So we have a Demeter certified biodynamic vineyard, and we've released the first wines that are also biodynamic wines. And what that means is that everything that's needed for a successful fermentation, the yeast itself, the nutrients for the fermentation to be, clean and express the grape and not some sort of weird, chemical character, is present in the grape itself. Is there because the wine has enough nutrient to have a successful fermentation. And we just released the first red wine from that series, which is a Pinot Noir. And it is such a cool wine. I mean, Pinot Noir, is one of those grapes that expresses itself in many different ways, in many different places. And it is got so many layers of flavor, from the juicy, fruity characters to the really earthy sort of, I know it's not nice to say, but let's be honest, sort of mushroomy forest floor characters, right? Which I personally love. I love that richness and that savory character in wine. And we made this wine from 2018. It was fermented in large oak tanks. And then right after the malolactic fermentation was done, we went right into the bottle with no barrel aging. And we shared it with a few people at that time when it was very, very young. And it was really cool and really vibrant. It was almost a little bit like there was almost a little bit of carbonation in it because it was so young and fresh. But we didn't really push it or market it because it was a new way of making wine for us. Typically, when we make red wine, we like to let it age in barrels for a longer amount of time and get mellow and harmonious that way with the tannins and the acids. But in this case, we wanted the freshness and the juiciness of the fruit to contrast with the youth of the tannins and the acid and to have a different sort of experience. Anyway, flash forward a year, and now that wine has bottle matured for a year and has started to find a little bit of harmony in those structural elements of it. And we finally put it on our website for sale for the first time.
Wow.
And are now pouring it in our wine shop. And I mean, to me, it is such a fun wine because it is so pure, it is so complex, and it's not from the barrel aging or anything else. It's just from the fruit, And to me, that's fun.
So for people in the Vancouver area, which of your wines would you say right now, like where people can get them locally, what would be like the standout wines that people should be looking for right now?
Sure. Well, Swirl in Yaletown has a whole selection of our wines.
Yeah.
Who else is a really great supporter of ours? In what's the neighborhood called in like West Hastings? What's that called
East
there?
Village. East Village.
East Village. Maybe that's what it's called, like where all the hotels are and stuff like that. The
Oh,
convention center.
oh no,
Uh,
that's
Cole
downtown.
Harbor.
Cole
Cole
Harbor. Yeah.
Harbor. Yeah, that's what I mean. The Cole Harbor wine store. They have a good selection of our wines,
Yeah.
and the sort of under $30 everyday red wine that I serve most,
Hmm.
other than that Summerhill Vineyard Pinot Noir I was mentioning,
Yeah.
which is $35 by the way, is our organic Cabernet Franc. I think it's the 2016 vintage on the market right now. That's what I was mentioning. We typically do a long period of time of barrel aging with the red wines to let them get harmonious. So our current release for that is 2016, and it's great. That's a great wine. That's what you'd find in those stores for sure. In the BC liquor stores, they carry our alive wines,
Yeah.
and the white. I think I'm not sure if it's a 2018 or the 2019 on the shelf right now, and the red I believe is 2018, and that's a really good value. It's like $25, and it's Syrah and Cabernet Franc, and
Okay.
it's also a young, juicy, fruit-driven wine from very premium Okanagan grapes. Probably the best value in our portfolio, and I mean the BC liquor store is such a competitive market to get into, so we really had to offer them something of very good value to be on their shelves. So that's actually kind of a good bet.
So that handles Vancouver. How about in the Kelowna area, Okanagan region? Can people get the same wines outside of your own tasting? Can people get the same wines in that area as well?
Yeah, well, in Kelowna, both in West Kelowna and Kelowna, we have the Save On Foods here that have the wine sections. I don't think you have that in Vancouver yet.
I think there's one actually, but
Oh,
it's
really?
not right. It's not right in the city. I believe it's in one of the suburbs somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, you got them in Surrey and
Langley, I think so.
Langley and
Yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah.
you do. But those stores actually have an excellent selection of our wines. They got a whole sort of cascading waterfall of our wine. Even some of the really beautiful premium rare wines that we don't even have at the winery anymore. They have a 20 at those Save-On stores. Not
Oh,
all of them, but some of them still have some 2010 Grasslands Organic Cabernet Franc. And that is a wine that we released with Robert Bateman. It's got his artwork on the label. It supports his
wow.
charity. And those were wines that were built to age. I mean, that's like drinking Right Bank Bordeaux. We released some from our library. We sell it for $90 a bottle. But when it was first released, I believe it was 45, and there's still a few bottles out there at grocery stores that are probably around 45, $50 a bottle. And grab those. If you see those on the shelf, get them. They are extraordinary wines.
Okay, so that's good to know. So let me ask you. So I know that you like Indian food because I ran into you in a restaurant in Vancouver last summer on Commercial Drive,
Yeah.
Sweet Cherubim. So for people having Indian food, what wine would you think from your collection would pair the best?
Well, I think the sparkling wines pair the best, personally.
Okay.
We have a sparkling wine, sort of our house sparkling wine called Cipes Brut, which is also widely available in the BC liquor stores and in a lot of private wine stores, in fridges. It's very, very well distributed. And that is a traditional method sparkling wine, although the cuvee is not traditional.
Hmm.
It is Riesling, Pinot Blanc, and Chardonnay. So it's a little bit aromatic, but really fruity sparkling wine. Riesling has the most magnificent natural acidity and what's the word I'm looking for? Just the texture of it, the mouthfeel of it, the weight of the wine of Riesling. It's just beautiful in the mouth. And the acidity is so vibrant and so distinctive. And it's so refreshing between the bubbles, the acid, and the fruitiness of it. It's just like, it's a really, really refreshing wine to have with the kind of spices you find in Indian food.
So is
How's
there
that?
anything? Yes, that sounds great. So is there anything that you want to tell us about what's happening at Summerhill this summer? People can look forward to if they're heading out on a drive from Vancouver or anywhere else in the province to your winery and tasting room. Anything that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, make a day of it. Come to visit Summerhill, do a tasting, have lunch or dinner, but also relax. We have a very nice sort of tourist sort of area with all of the wine shop and the parking lot and everything. But we also are an 80-acre biodynamic farm that we invite you to come and explore and wear hiking shoes and a sun hat and walk around. Go visit the vegetable garden. My brother Gabe will be down there growing vegetables for the restaurant. Go and walk around in the nature preserves. Go and see the compost area where we make all our fertilizers. It's a very biodiverse, very alive farm. And when you walk around it, you get a feeling for who we are and what we care about and what's behind the wines that you don't get when you're just in the sort of area that's built for tourists. The farm is the real heart of the operation. And we usually have so many weddings all through the season, and it almost sort of blocks the entrance to the farm. You know, people don't want to disturb the weddings for good reason. And but this year it's not going to be like that. You know, we are going to have weddings, but they're going to be less than 50 people. There'll be intimate little affairs, and there's far fewer of them because most people are sort of delaying their big events for when they can have all their friends and family. So the farm is going to be a lot more accessible this year. And already, when people would show up in March and April when we couldn't do tastings, we couldn't serve them food, we could still sell them wine. We just invited everybody to go walk around the farm, and it was lovely. It was so nice. You know, people would show up, maybe they're visiting friends or they're on business, whatever. And we'll keep that going through this season. So that'll be something a little different, a little more intimate during this strange year.
Yeah, very strange year for everybody, right? It's just what a crazy time. But you have to get through it. So there's different ways of doing it. And then we're even seeing restaurants and how they're doing things now and spacing on tables and patios. But I think Vancouver, you know, they're working on the patio thing. But I think up there in your area, because you've got great weather usually, it looks like it's cloudy today, but usually it's nice weather up there and people can sit out on the patio because there's usually a lot of them. So so you guys are in good shape for that, I think, this summer. But anyway,
we're all set.
Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, and people can check out this IG Live online very shortly and see what they've missed, and then head out up to your winery this summer.
Thank you so much, Richard. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.